distinguished guests, faculty, staff, and students, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to all. We are honored that you're able to join us today to commemorate the opening of SMU Mental Health Awareness Week 2021 and the launch of SMU Resilience Framework. My name is Jia En, the President of the 21st SMUSA Executive Committee and 17th Student Association Council. I'm also privileged and delighted to be your MC this afternoon. This is the first time that SMU is organizing a virtual ceremony to mark both the opening of SMU Mental Health Awareness Week and the official launch of the SMU Resilience Framework. I'm so glad that you're able to take time off your busy schedules to be part of this important event with us, virtually from everywhere around Singapore. But first, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of two distinguished guests who are also devoted, longtime partners of the university. Dato Kho Hui Meng and Mrs. Wong have contributed significantly to SMU's growth, not just through their very generous donations, but more importantly, because of their strong advocacy in student development and well-being. Dato Kho and Mrs. Wong, or Mama Wong, as we affectionately call her, are instrumental in the setup of the Dato Kho Hui Meng Career Center and Mrs. Wong Kok Leong Student Wellness Center. The university is greatly indebted to your committed partnership. Thank you for being SMU's pillars of support, and we are honored that you are able to join us today. At this moment, I'd like to share a little bit about my SMU experience. Like all my peers, I came into SMU with the goal to take my education to the next level, graduate, find a good job, and make my parents proud. But you and I know that school life is not just about studies and grades. Over the last 2 years being part of SMU Students Association, or SMUSA, from being a deputy to joining the organizing committee for Freshman Orientation Moose Online 2020, and eventually running for president, I've had the same goal in mind, to make SMU a warmer place for everyone to be in. On the screen, you may take a look at the memories that I've created so far in SMUSA. Firstly, from the bonding time we had during our meetings, to having inter-university dialogues with the other schools, presidents and the student unions, and my first speech as president earlier this year during our annual general meeting. Yes, so at every step of my SMUSA journey, it has been very different, but overall extremely eye-opening. Not only have I learned how the system works, I've also forged many meaningful relationships with different teams and stakeholders along the way. Especially in this pandemic, it gets stressful and overwhelming for us sometimes. But it's comforting to know that SMU is equally committed to delivering lessons for life as it is to caring for its students, especially for personal safety, mental health, and well-being. For this, I am so very grateful, and these are the experiences that I will keep close to my heart no matter where I go in the future. SMU first organized Mental Health Awareness Week in 2017 with the aim to get the community talking about the importance of taking care of our mental health and to tell us that, well, sometimes it's okay not to be okay. We just need to know that there's help around if we reach out. 5 years on, and the event, annually organized by Mrs. Wong Kok Leong Student Wellness Center and the SMU Peer Helpers in conjunction with World Mental Health Day, is a reminder for us to pause, take stock, and check how we are coping physically, mentally, and emotionally. This year, our focus is on social wellness, how staying connected during periods of calm or turbulence can sustain our well-being and those around us. To officially open SMU Mental Health Awareness Week 2021 and to enlighten us more about this year's event, I'd now like to call upon SMU Provost, Professor Timothy Clark, to deliver his opening address. Provost, please.
Thank you, Jain, and it's great to hear about your own journey in SMUSA. And I just want to say what a wonderful working relationship that we have with SMUSA and how important that's been managing the pandemic and the impacts on the university over the last 18 months or so. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon, Mrs. Wong and Dato Kho and distinguished guests, SMU colleagues and students. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. It's my great pleasure to welcome you to the opening of the SMU Mental Health Awareness Week 2021. I'm really delighted to be here to kickstart this week. As colleagues know, since I joined the university, this has been a priority for me. Mental health and wellness I take very seriously, and I'm delighted to see all of the developments that have occurred in the last 4 years, and it was great to see the pictures of earlier events. A little over a week ago, on the 10th of October, we marked Mental Health Day, World Mental Health Day. This is a celebration in over 100 countries. The objective is to raise awareness of mental health issues around the world and to mobilize efforts in supporting mental health. World Mental Health Day provides a valuable platform for all organizations working on mental health issues to both raise awareness of their work, but also to reflect on its impact and the emerging needs of society. It is a collective reflective moment on this vital issue across the world. And this year, Mental Health Day has found many societies around the world actively thinking through the medium and long-term implications of COVID. It's widely acknowledged that the pandemic has led to significant changes to our daily lives. We're all experiencing those at the moment. And these arise from restrictions in movement and travel to a range of social distancing measures. Social interaction has been limited and people have felt isolated from those who they support, as well as those who sustain and support them. Thus, the opportunities to build resilience through social interaction have been significantly restricted. For these reasons, mental health has come under the spotlight, not just here in Singapore, but around the world, and indeed is an active topic of conversation across all universities across the world. At SMU, we accord great importance to mental health and the mental well-being of our students and staff. And despite periods of online learning, we've continued to strive to provide students a challenging yet nurturing and supportive environment where they can work towards fulfilling their academic, personal and professional goals. As part of the university's comprehensive education offering, SMU is committed to providing opportunities for students to pick up valuable life skills and coping strategies which we believe will continue to be relevant in their lives even after they've left SMU. Even before the pandemic, we were thinking about how we might further enhance our support for our community. The university has always adopted a proactive and holistic approach towards supporting our students' mental health issues. Following our review of our mental health and wellness support, I'm delighted to announce that we've developed the SMU Resilience Framework, which reinforces the university's multi-pronged approach to promoting and supporting mental well-being. Through active engagement and close partnership with students, we aim to build their capability and empower them to make choices towards a more fulfilling life, even when faced with difficult and stressful situations. So as we open SMU Mental Health Awareness Week 2021, we also take the opportunity to officially launch the SMU Resilience Framework. My colleagues will be sharing more about how the university strives to partner and support our students in building resilience so that they can maintain a sense of mental equilibrium and remain confident in themselves to meet the challenges, not just of learning, but of life. At this juncture, I'm delighted to present the theme of this year's SMU Mental Health Awareness Week. Very aptly, it's Let's Stay Connected. This essentially emphasizes the importance of social connections, especially in a time of social distance. This year's program comprises workshops and activities that help us recognize the value of reaching out, forming relationships and proactively supporting one another, and to understand how these contribute to building positive mental health. I would like to especially encourage our students to participate in the program that has been painstakingly put together by a dedicated team from the Mrs. Wong, Kwok, Leong Student Wellness Centre. Better yet, invite a friend or two and enjoy the activities together. On this note, I'd also like to acknowledge that SMU cannot and should not be alone in championing student mental well-being. We've benefited immensely from the exchange and sharing of knowledge, expertise, as well as best practice with various partners and our friends from the other institutes of higher learning in Singapore, as well as those from other parts of the world. I'm very keen that we continue this spirit of collaboration and work towards strengthening this community of practice across IHLs. I've no doubt that through our collective efforts, we can make meaningful impact in enhancing student mental well-being in Singapore. and become a beacon of best practice internationally. Today's event and the week-long programme of activities would not be possible without the generous donations and kind support of Mrs. Wong and Dato Kho, as well as the efforts of our partners. Your unstinting support has enabled us to continue to do the best for our students, and we are very appreciative. Thank you. I wish everyone an informative and enjoyable time today and over the next 4 days of the programme. I very much hope that you have fruitful discussions and learn a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost. I'd now like to invite our distinguished guest and SMU donor, Mrs. Wong Leong, to say a few words. Mrs. Wong will first address us in Mandarin, and I will highlight some of the key statements thereafter. Mrs. Wong, please.
谢谢。尊敬的新加坡管理大学教授 Professor Timothy Clark， 各位来宾，各位大德们，大都，同学们，朋友们，下午好！非常高兴能够参加新大韧性框架自动启动的仪式。我们的社区因为疫情的关系，面临了很多前所未有的挑战，因此得知新大力为加强学生们的心理健康做出的贡献，我感到十分的欣慰。我曾在2013年以专政的仪式表示我对新大发展学生健康中心的支持，以此鼓励未来几代的新大社区培养并加强抗压能力，让我们可以更好地面对生活中的各种压力。因为学生们的心理健康，我决定我们的社会未来的健康程度将来会很好。过去的几年，由这个 Ada 郑小姐带领下，黄国良学生健康中心的团队表现非常的出色，感谢他。我相信在新大专业的辅导导师们给予你们的最适用的服务和支持，精心的学生互助同伴也将会让你们有多一层的社会安全网，能够参与这项对学生社群这么有意义的服务，是我们的荣幸。至此，我诚心祝今天所有在场的各位都拥有健康、福慧双修、身心健康，成功更上一层楼，吉祥如意。谢谢。
Thank you, Mrs. Wong. We are grateful to hear that you deeply appreciate SMU's effort to strengthen students' mental wellness even during these challenging times, especially through initiatives by Mrs. Wong Leong Student Wellness Center. You also spoke about your confidence in SMU's counselors and the SMU peer helpers in providing appropriate services, support, and social safety net, and how honored you are to be part of this meaningful service for the student community. Mrs. Wong, please know that we are greatly indebted to your gift made to the Mrs. Wong Leong Student Wellness Center in 2013. It has and will continue to benefit many cohorts of SMU students to come. Thank you, Mrs. Wong, for your kind generosity and being an advocate for student mental wellness. 黄妈妈，我们学生很幸运能够得到您的爱护，谢谢您这几年来的支持，我们很感恩。This afternoon, together with the opening of Mental Health Awareness Week 2021, you also officially launched the SMU Resilience Framework. The framework was co-created by staff from several units of the Office of Dean of Students. It will serve as the basis to focus the university's proactive efforts in supporting and strengthening students' mental well-being and raising mental health literacy levels across different platforms. Mr. Alvin Sim, Head of Co-Curriculum Development Team from the Office of Dean of Students, will now give us an insight to the SMU Resilience Framework. Alvin, please.
Thank you, Jia En, and good afternoon, everyone. SMU approaches overall student wellness through developing the trait and skill of resilience in our students. This is a proactive approach towards supporting our students' mental health. The SMU Resilience Framework serves as a holistic platform to focus the university's efforts towards strengthening students' mental well-being and raising mental health literacy levels. But why resilience, you may ask? Resilience ensures that we are able to bounce back from difficult circumstances and to be able to make better choices towards a more fulfilling life. And that is what we aspire for all our students. With resilience, we'll be better, be able to cope with life's challenges and recover from setbacks. Now sit back and enjoy the video as we hear from members of the SMU leadership.
University life can be challenging. With the combination of academic and financial pressures, transition issues, and concerns arising from the COVID-19 pandemic, some students may experience higher levels of psychological distress. At SMU, we care about our students' mental well-being and proactively support them in achieving mental health.
Positive mental health enables us to maintain a sense of equilibrium and self-belief so that we remain purposeful, engaged and confident to meet the challenges, not just of learning, but of life. Resilience ensures that we're able to bounce back from difficult circumstances and make better choices towards a more fulfilling life.
The SMU Resilience Framework aims to promote mental well-being among students through building resilience in 6 interrelated dimensions of wellness. They are physical, intellectual, social, emotional, career, and financial. The framework illustrates the interconnectedness of each dimension and how they contribute to one's overall resilience. SMU adopts a 3-pronged approach towards developing resilience in our students through education, imparting knowledge and skills to both staff and students, and shaping attitudes. Through encouragement, providing both professional and peer support through various platforms. And in experiences, broadening students' emotional and psychological horizons through authentic learning environments.
A supportive university environment helps students learn valuable life or coping skills, which are transferable to a range of post-university settings, including workplaces. Through the 3-pronged approach of education, encouragement and experiences, we aspire to build resilience in students so that they can be empowered to take charge of their own well-being, enjoy their time at university and achieve their academic, personal and professional goals.
Hope you enjoyed the video. Through the 3 key thrusts in areas of education, encouragement, and experiences, at SMU, we aspire to proactively develop resilience in students in the domains of the physical, intellectual, social, emotional, career, and financial. Our goal is that students be empowered to take charge of their own well-being and support the well-being of others, even after leaving university. Furthermore, this framework is aligned to SMU's graduate learning outcomes, where resilience and positivity are identified as desired outcomes under the graduate learning outcome of personal mastery. Please allow me now to expound on the approach of education. A supportive university environment helps equip students with valuable lives and coping skills which are transferable to a range of post-university settings, including the workplace. Such knowledge and skills are shared through a variety of education initiatives in SMU. The first, online modules. Beginning this academic year, all incoming freshmen are strongly encouraged to complete the online module entitled Mental Health in You. This specially curated module helps students understand why mental wellness matters and teaches them practical strategies in looking after their own mental well-being and provides advice on when and how to seek help. In addition, there's a range of online learning modules that have been developed to equip students with the relevant knowledge and skills. So topics covered range from stress management, effective time management, to virtual work skills. These resources, currently housed in the co-curricular learning page on OASIS, can be accessed on demand by students. By early next year, I'm happy to share that all these resources will be consolidated within a microsite, which will serve as a one-stop portal for all resources and programs that fall under the SMU Resilience Framework. Our second approach is through workshops. So beyond online resources, workshops are regularly run by various officers at SMU. For example, the Thrive Workshop series offers personal development opportunities and equips students with practical life skills. Examples of topics covered include managing personal finance and when life throws you lemons. Second, the SMU Pathfinders workshop series comprises curated experiential workshops focusing on developing values-driven learners, authentic collaborators, and responsible global citizens. Examples of workshops we have conducted recently include managing difficult people, as well as self-leadership, mindset, and skill set. And of course, the Mrs. Wong Leong Student Wellness Center also has a workshop series that offers wellness tips to enhance personal and relationship effectiveness. Examples of workshops include managing family relationships, as well as self-care. In the area of career resilience, the Dato Kho Hui Meng Career Center, as part of its Finishing Touch program, offers a slew of workshops which cover soft skills training and guide students towards building their professional and personal brand as future job seekers. I strongly urge students to seize these valuable learning opportunities and participate actively in these workshops. In order to strengthen the operationalization of the SMU Resilience Framework and to proactively boost the overall well-being of students, I'm pleased to share two new initiatives under the education pillar that the university will be embarking on. The first is a self-help app. SMU will be leveraging technology in our endeavor to build resilience in the SMU community. We will be starting with a trial of a self-help app for students. This platform combines social engagement activities, tools, and educational content to empower students to assimilate positive habits and coping skills. We strongly believe that this app will prove useful and engaging, and we look forward to making it available to the entire student population very soon. The second is an online module for faculty and staff. Faculty and staff play a crucial role in supporting the mental health of our students. In order to help our faculty and staff to be better equipped to identify students who may require assistance and to render appropriate timely support, an online module entitled Supporting Students' Mental Wellbeing is currently being developed. This module will equip all faculty and student-facing staff with baseline mental health literacy, such as the identification of early warning signs, as well as the skills to provide appropriate support and referral. Apart from imparting knowledge and skills, another focal area in the SMU Resilience Framework, as you heard in the video earlier, is the pillar of encouragement. While professional support is readily provided to students, for example, counseling services by the team at Mrs. Wong Leong Student Wellness Center, as well as career coaching by the coaches at Dato Kho Hui Meng Career Center, we cannot underestimate the role of peer support and encouragement in building resilience. I'm very happy now to invite Aanya, a representative from the SMU Peer Helpers, as she shares about her very meaningful journey as a peer helper. Over to you, Aanya.
My name is Aanya, and I am a Year 4 School of Social Sciences student studying psychology and marketing. I'm extremely passionate about making a difference in the mental health space. The opportunity to make mental well-being resources more accessible within SMU drove me to join SMU Peer Helpers in my very first semester here. SMU Peer Helpers, or PH for short, are full-time undergraduate students who are trained to support the work of professional counselors at the Mrs. Wong Leong Student Wellness Center. While we are not professional counselors, we extend the reach of the Wellness Center by providing a listening ear and emotional support to our peers in times of need. I remember the times when my close friends would confide in me about the struggles that they were facing. whether they be about academic stress, relationship conflict, or depression. Often, these were situations that I could not relate to, and I was at a loss of what to say to comfort them. I tried giving advice about how they could feel better, but it didn't always work so well. I'm sure that this is a relatable situation for many of us. It was also what motivated me to become a better friend, as PH trains us to be. PH has provided me with the opportunity to develop my skills to be able to better support my friends facing challenging situations. Through our weekly training sessions held by counselors and other mental health professionals, I have learned crucial skills such as empathy, suicide intervention, and mental health first aid. We practice a lot through various role-play situations, where one person takes on the role of a peer in distress, another is a peer helper lending support, and a third person is a neutral observer who gives feedback. Beyond role plays, I frequently apply these skills in real life too. One example was last year, when due to COVID-19 measures, a group of students was suddenly displaced from their residence. The peer helpers volunteered to form a crisis response team and met with the affected students to listen to their concerns and provide them with encouragement and emotional support. Afterwards, one of the affected students that I had talked to said that she was grateful for the safe space that we provided to share her personal thoughts and feelings. This situation was a real test of my skills, and while it was intimidating, it was also extremely fulfilling to help someone out in such an overwhelming situation and to be able to see the impact of my contribution. I have also had the opportunity of aiding our counselors with cases of students who are looking for additional peer support. A fellow peer helper and I have been assisting one such student for the past few months through her personal and professional struggles. Something that I really cherish about this is that we now have a strong friendship beyond just a formal peer helping relationship. In my experience, having a friend to support and encourage you through difficult times really helps with coping with the challenges and in building resilience. Even through serving as a peer helper, I have found myself to become more resilient over time as I'm better able to bounce back from setbacks. PH has provided me with a community of like-minded people who have been there for me a countless number of times, such as when I was feeling overwhelmed with my studies. It is also comforting to have people who can relate to some of the challenges of being a peer helper. As a supporter, it's important to take out time to take care of ourselves too. My go-to form of self-care is listening to music or watching a sitcom on Netflix, which helps me recharge my energy. I'm really grateful for all that I have learned as a peer helper and for being able to contribute to the well-being of fellow SMU undergraduates. I hope to continue on this journey even as an SMU alumni and give back to the future generations of peer helpers. Certainly, the skills that I have learned will stay with me throughout my life and will allow me to support the well-being of people around me even after I graduate. Thank you.
Thank you, Aanya. Thank you so much, Aanya. I'm always very proud to see the encouragement and support that SMU students provide so readily to their peers. You know, one of the SMU's distinctive pedagogies is experiential learning. At SMU, we believe that the experience of the real world provides the valuable platform for students to broaden their emotional and psychological horizons, and in the process, develop resilience. From internships and SMUX modules to the array of student clubs, there is a whole host of authentic learning opportunities at SMU. To illustrate the experiences pillar in the SMU Resilience Framework, may I now please invite Lydia as she shares her reflections from her involvement in the community service project. Over to you, Lydia.
Good afternoon, everyone. COVID-19 has had a significant impact on our lives, and community service projects were not exempt from the restrictions and guidelines, which affected the feasibility and survivability of many projects. Some projects have shuttered, while others were born from the opportunities that COVID-19 has presented. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lydia, and I'm here to share with you my community service experience and how COVID-19 has helped me become more resilient as a leader of a newfound project. I'm a member of SMU Rotaract Club, a youth development club that emphasizes service over self, as well as achieving fellowship through community service, professional development, and club service. When I was elected into Rotaract's executive committee as a project director, I was slated to take over Project Silver. It was a project to provide companionship and joy to the elderly who are in their silver years. Through interactions with volunteers during regular befriending sessions, I was really excited for this opportunity to make a difference in the lives of the elderly. However, it was over before it began. COVID-19 made interacting with the elderly unfeasible, them being such a high-risk group and organization not being equipped with the resources to conduct online sessions. After discussion with the team and organization, Project Silver was then officially discontinued. Then one fine day, the staff from C4SR approached me and went like, "Hey Lydia, would you be interested in being involved in a project which entailed working with migrant workers?" And Rotaract Club was like, "Yeah, sure, let's take on this meaningful project as Project Silver's successor." And that was how I became the project director of Project Yokefellow. Project Yokefellow was a collaborative project between Rotaract and UniY, another community service CCA in Singapore, in SMU, which works with migrant worker community in Singapore. The name Yokefellow derives from being yoked equally with our fellow migrant workers so that they can share their burdens with us and feel less stressed and lonely amidst the COVID-19 restrictions. We wanted to show that we care and provided a space for them to talk about their joys and woes in life and work. At the same time, to encourage and foster cultural exchange, we sought to share aspects of Singapore culture with them, such as our local food, festivities, and traditions. We felt that Yokefellow would be a meaningful project as it not only sheds light on the plight of migrant workers in Singapore, who are one of the most marginalized groups of people here, it enables us to make a difference in their lives, to make them feel appreciated and welcome in a foreign land. However, since it was the first time SMU had ever worked with this beneficiary group, there were many hurdles we had to overcome before the project could become a reality. And the first thing we did was to conduct a pilot run to test out the feasibility of the project. Unfortunately, we faced difficulties trying to find an organization that was suitable and that was willing to work with us. Many organizations felt that we were inexperienced, and most were unable to accommodate an additional program due to COVID-19 restrictions, as well as administrative and logistical concerns. The team took the initial struggles we faced in our stride, as it was a valuable learning process for all of us. Through the rigors of coordinating and communicating between organizations and communities, we learned to adapt to uncertain circumstances better. The pilot project was eventually a success, where we managed to engage with many migrant workers, and this gave us the confidence to move on to officially launch the project. After the success of the pilot run, I expected the official launch to go much more smoothly and be a rousing success as well. However, the reality was quite different from what I had expected. Execution of Project Yokefellow was riddled with difficulties of its own. The initial project deadline had to be pushed back as we were unable to confirm a dormitory that would be available for us to access. After settling that issue, not a single migrant worker showed up during the first few sessions due to miscommunication and the organization's end. Initially, they had approved of our marketing collateral. However, after the poor turnouts, they started to pin the blame on our marketing collaterals, saying they were not attractive enough to entice the migrant workers to join or participate in the activities. This resulted in the volunteers feeling shortchanged due to the lack of interaction with the migrant workers, and the organizing committee feeling disgruntled over the one-sided blame that had been placed upon us. We then decided to put our project on hold and reassess the feasibility of the project. This delayed our initial timeline even further, and I struggled to manage the expectations of my volunteers, as I was unable to confirm whether the project would even be able to resume. Despite this, UniY's project director and I remained determined to achieve Yokefellow's vision and the purpose to deliver what we had promised to the volunteers. We worked closely with our partner organization to source for another dormitory that was willing and able to work with us. And just as we found one, COVID-19 restrictions on the migrant dormitories made it impossible once again to execute our plans, which resulted in us needing to push back the project even further. Eventually, after 5 months, we were able to successfully complete the project and engage with the migrant community through interactive games and quizzes. Hearing them share about their families at home and how determined they were to continue working to provide for them despite all the hazards and long working hours was truly inspiring. At the end of the session, as we waved goodbye to each other, seeing them smiles on their faces gave me the assurance that Yokefellow had fulfilled its purpose. The road to establishing this project as an official one was not easy, not just during the planning and organization phase, but also during the execution phase, where the attendance of migrant workers during the sessions were low and many volunteers dropped out along the way due to the delays. It was very discouraging for me to see these things happening, and I was filled with doubt as to whether the project could continue and whether I was doing enough as a leader. Honestly, I did feel like giving up because it felt as if all the odds were stacked against me and nothing seemed to be going according to plan. However, I resolved to persevere and continue leading the project to the best of my ability, not for anyone else, but the migrant worker community we sought to help. After all, the nature of community service is placing others over oneself, and it was this belief that helped me during my darkest and loneliest hours. And this is the hope that I have for each one of you, to see the purpose and meaning in what you're doing, and to draw passion and motivation from it, so you do not lose sight of what you want to achieve on your journey. This does not only apply to community service, but also to every aspect of life. We all face trials and tribulations that may leave us defeated, whether it's trying to meet tight project deadlines, cope with overwhelming schedules, and juggling various responsibilities we have at home or school. I'm here to reassure you that it is okay to be disheartened, and it's normal to get knocked down. Always remember that these setbacks do not define us. It is how we overcome these challenges that define our battle and prove that we are greater than our pain. This is what resilience is and what we all can be. Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia. It's always so heartening to hear about how SMU students continue to make a difference in the difficult circumstances posed by the pandemic. It certainly exemplifies resilience. As the university works towards operationalizing the SMU Resilience Framework, we will continue to adopt an evidence-based approach in designing the appropriate intervention measures in the three focal areas of education, encouragement, and experiences. For example, in order to keep abreast of student sentiments and to be able to react very quickly to concerns that arise on the ground, we have started to launch the Student Pulse Survey, which is conducted twice a semester to better understand students' sentiments and needs. I hope you have enjoyed learning about the SMU Resilience Framework, as well as SMU's ongoing efforts to strengthen students' mental well-being. Now, over back to you, Jia En.
Thank you, Alvin. We'll now have a short discussion on how these areas of education, encouragement, and experiences contribute in the university context to building resilience and sustaining the mental health and well-being of students. With us today are three esteemed panelists. First, Associate Professor Daniel Fung is a senior consultant and CEO of the Institute of Mental Health, where he was chairman of its medical board from 2011 to 2020. He is also adjunct associate professor at all three Singapore medical schools and is currently president of the International Association for Child and Adolescent Psychiatry and Allied Professions, as well as president of the College of Psychiatrists in the Academy of Medicine, Singapore. Our next panelist, Ms. Tan Lee San, is CEO of the National Council of Social Service. Ms. Tan has held positions in the Ministries of Communications and Information, Environment and Water Resources, Finance and Manpower, as well as in the Public Service Division, Infocom Development Authority of Singapore, and Civil Service College. She also serves on the boards of Beyond Social Services, Movement for the Intellectually Disabled of Singapore, or MINDS, SG Enable, Charity Council, National Volunteer and Philanthropy Center, and RAISE. Finally, I'm very honored to be part of this discussion too, representing the student perspective. Our moderator for the panel discussion is Dr. Ada Chung, head of Mrs. Wong Student Wellness Center here at SMU. As the center's principal counselor, she leads a team of counselors at the center to provide counseling support to any SMU student who requires guidance or assistance or just needs someone to talk or listen.
So to start off this afternoon panel discussions entitled Mental Health of Students, Challenges and Resources. I would like to first pose this, questions to our student representative to set our discussion perspective. So Jain, back to you. Can you share with us the challenges you face as a university student? Because apparently you and me from different generations, what you're facing may not be, we are not so familiar or aware of. So I invite you to share with us the challenges you are facing and how these challenges can impact you and your peers' mental wellness. In the meantime, for our guests, we will take your questions after our panelist has spoken. So now over to you, Jain.
Thank you, Ada. So I think as a university student at this 20-ish age, I would say it's the process of growing up and entering adulthood that's actually challenging us, because at this point we are all learning more about ourselves, who we want to be, what we set to achieve, and with everything surrounding us happening at almost the same time. And as a university student, we have to juggle school commitments and as well as wanting to build ourselves professionally at the same time. It can get a little chaotic, and I think in that chaos, it really in a way stresses out a little, right? Yeah, because you do get a little overwhelmed. And adding on to it, I would say, because nowadays with social media in place, we often as we try to strive to be a better version of ourselves, we also tend to compare with those around us, even though we've always been okay, we shouldn't compare, but it's inevitable. You see, everybody is posting something about their achievements or what they are doing. I think that is in a way that actually stresses out even more. Yeah, and I think that is one of the I think I would say the challenges being a university student so far for me. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for your sharing. So I think you highlight a few very important to us. Is one of the things is the impact of the social media on youth, especially youth mental health. And then another thing is the uncertainty of the transitions that you and your peers are facing during this period, especially I think during pandemic. So all these actually are very important information to us, for us. And in fact, knowing ground sentiments is one of the key ways for us to connect with our students. And thank you for your sharing. So as Alvin has mentioned, we recently launched a student pulse survey to get a feedback and information about how students are feeling and what areas worries or concern them. So these informations actually help us to shape our activity center on the resilience framework. And all this I will share with you, a little bit more at the end of the panel discussion. But back to our panelists, Jain has just mentioned some of the challenges. This brings me to my next questions. How do we support the mental well-being of this particular group of students? And the challenges that they are facing can be social media, can be the transaction uncertainty, all this. And what can we do to reach out to them or encourage them to reach out to us? So Dr. Fung, perhaps you can share your opinion with us. What can we do to support them?
Thank you, Ada, and I hope you can hear me. I know I have limited time, and I'll talk about three things. I think Jain already mentioned stress. Stress is important. It's part of life. Stress is like water. 70% of us are made of water, and probably a lot of stress as well. But there is good stress. There's tolerable stress, like your exams and all those things that you have to do. And then there is toxic stress, stress that is, very persistent, chronic, difficult. Before we started this in the introduction, talking to the panelists and others on the panel, I was very troubled. I was under a bit of stress because our hospital had an outbreak. Now, this is part of what I would consider sometimes good or even tolerable stress. It's not stress that is toxic. Now, identifying what is the right, the types of stress that we're facing and knowing how to deal with it. If it's toxic, how do you deal with it? How do you manage it? Can you avoid it? Can you find ways to get out of it? Versus good stress, how do you make it better? Good stress gives you, gets better results. People tend to be motivated, and they become better. And in fact, resilience is the result of good stress and tolerable stress. Toxic stress, on the other hand, creates vulnerabilities, and that's when breakdowns can occur. Now, my second point is stigma. Why do I say stigma? Because I think a lot of people, and we've done a variety of surveys over the between 2014 to 2016 and 2017 as well. There's been surveys that ask people, what do you think of mental illnesses generally, and what do you understand of it? Would you help someone? Would you allow them to work with you? Would you live close to them? And the answer is very loud, no. 50% of the population of Singapore actually avoids people who have mental illnesses or who are presumably under some degree of mental health, stress, and so forth. So we need to change that. The good news, of course, is that in those surveys, we've also asked young people like Jia En, they are embarrassed when they develop mental health condition, but interestingly, they are also very helpful. They are willing to help someone and they want to help someone. So maybe we could leverage a little bit on that, reduce some of that societal stigma and also some of that self-stigma so that people will seek help earlier. And stigma is a hindrance to help-seeking behavior, which is what your resilience framework somewhat leads to. Finally, I think you should stop calling this the Mental Health Awareness Week and start moving it. Since I was here in 2017 when you launched your peer helpers, I think you should start thinking about mental health literacy and mental health participation so that you will reduce that stigma and make it much more meaningful. My daughter Grace was a graduate of SMU many years ago. She is expecting her second child, and I hope to be a grandfather twice over. So I think what you're doing is very important for the next generation. So those are my 3 points that I like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fa, and congrats you. You are like grandfather, I think this year, or last year. Okay, so I think 3 points here you highlight to us is really we need to see like what kind of stress we are facing, and it's always good to have the good stress because it's kind of a motivation and help us to perform. And then another 2 important points is we all need to work together to reduce the stigma of mental health or mental illness. And then the third thing is mental health literacy. Because I think like you also mentioned somewhere before, it's like mental health is a spectrum. Absent of the mental health illness doesn't mean that the presence of mental wellness. So all of us play a very important part in supporting the youth or everyone's mental well-being and reduce stigma, and everyone have a skill set or a basic literacy is very, very important. So so far we are talking about like the mental health support, especially to the younger generation, to the students. I think like we also want to know about like at the national level, what are the initiatives, and also like how do we shift the mindset when we are talking about like social stigma or the mental well-being. So first, Ms. Tan, your point of view, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me. Actually, Dr. Daniel Fung talked about, what we were speaking about before the seminar started. I didn't share that actually before our conversation, I was actually comforting my son. He had just come home from school and was very distraught because, he was saying he put so much effort into something, but yet he's not doing well. And, he's one of those in the cohorts that's taking a major exam this year. And I can see, how much pressure, young people these days really put on themselves. And so I'm so happy actually to hear, what SMU is doing in terms of the support that you're making available to your students. So I was invited to talk about at the national level. So thanks for that. I think at the national level, we do have, support available in various forms. So the National Care Hotline was set up last year in response to, the increased levels of anxiety and mental stress that we see happening. Mindline.sg is meant to be a sort of one-stop app for anyone who is looking to seek help, who needs help and wants to be pointed to resources. But realizing how important and how salient this issue is going to become, I think every one of us is aware that there's an interagency task force that's been set up to look into issues of mental health mental well-being, and Dr. Daniel Fung and myself are on that task force, really looking at, nationally, how do we better support families, children, youths? How do we integrate services between the healthcare and community care sectors? We do fund a lot of social service agencies that provide counseling on the ground, but how do we connect that, to the work that IMH does to make sure that there's a seamless sort of triaging and referrals for people who need help? And also, what other sort of enablers do we need to put in place, whether it's R&D or data sharing or, IT platforms, to really make all this fast, smoother, and more effective, way to help people who do need that support. I just wanted to also talk a little bit about, NCSS own Beyond the Label initiative. I think we spoke a lot about stigma. And this was something that we started a number of years ago, actually, three to 4 years ago, really to raise awareness, of mental health issues and to address issues relating to stigma. And last year, in the midst of the pandemic, actually, we received, we managed to reach out to an unprecedented number of people who I think, all these issues really resonated with them. And this year, we recently just launched the festival. And the idea is we are also, conducting a series of satellite events to help young people to, create safe spaces for people to ask questions about mental health conditions. And maybe I should just highlight one particular initiative, which is the Stop the Stigma Social Activation Challenge. So even as we talk about social media, being a source of stress, it can also be a force for good. So we really would love to have young people participate in this social activation challenge. The idea is that if you have lived experiences or if you've supported someone on their mental health journey, to please share stories of recovery, of hope, of encouragement, share a photo or a video, hashtag Stop the Stigma, and then tag friends to do the same, so that what we want to do is really to normalize these conversations, right? Make it safe, make it normal for people to talk about their mental health issues, mental health conditions, and more importantly, also to share stories of hope and recovery. Thanks.
Thanks, Ms. Han. I think like you highlight a very important point here is that how do we normalize the situation and remove the stigma. And we all know that Beyond the Label is a very successful movement to address stigma faced by persons with mental health condition in society. Thank you for highlighting to us that the national support avenues that anyone can reach out to. And remember, our students and our staff, you can go on the social media and hashtag, and we stop the stigma together. So I'm very mindful of time. So because I also see quite a number of questions here. So I think we can start our Q&A segment. So I think we can take about like 2 to 3 questions here. For the first questions, and go back to then Prof. Fung and Ms. Tan. What is your vision of youth mental health landscape came 2030? That means almost 10 years later. What is your visions about like the mental health landscape and what we can do or what we must do differently?
Okay, shall I start?
I suppose.
Sure. So what is our vision for 2030? I think looking 10 years is not too bad, not too difficult. It's looking at 100 years that is always the challenge. What I think will happen in 10 years is that we will have a much more digitally connected society. We will no longer have many digital migrants like ourselves, myself included, or hardly any digital refugees, because the world will be so digitalized, but digitalized in, I hope, a good way. That means social media and all the new ways of connectivity and getting services would be on that digital world. And I would imagine that because of that, we will also have a significant amount of mental health literacy. People will understand the differences between mental illnesses, which affect only maybe about 10 to 20% of the population in a lifetime, against mental health, which affects all of us because it's about stress. And we'll be able to learn within our school settings in education, what are the ways to manage our cognitive, our social, emotional, psychological aspects of our lives a lot better, because we're much better with some of that language. You know, in Asia, we are well known for not being very good with psychological lingo, and that hopefully with mental health literacy will improve, and people will be able to talk more freely, and they will be able to manage and distinguish between, you know, good stress versus toxic stress. Good stress that leads to resilience, toxic stress, for example, bullying on social media, for example, would be quite something that wouldn't you wouldn't talk of, because it's just not, you know, it's not good. It's not something that people will do, and hopefully we'll have a much more resilient society in managing the rigors of what the world will be throwing at us. Because in 10 years, I think the climate crisis will be tremendous, and we will all be focusing our attention on that.
Yeah, maybe I'll focus on two things. So I think one is my vision for 2030. I'm really hoping that, you know, we talk about normalizing all these conversations. And just now, you know, Daniel talked about the stigma there today, and I'm really hoping that, you know, some of these will go away, or at least, you know, sort of less than today, whether it's social stigma or self-stigma. And I do believe that we can get there. I'm very optimistic. I think, you know, we are taking strides. We are taking efforts to teach people from a very young age. So I have another son. My youngest is 9. He came back one day and told me, "Oh, Mom, I've been selected as a peer support leader." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, you're 9 years old, right? What do you do as a peer support leader?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm supposed to look out for people who look troubled. And then I have to bring them, you know, to the teacher and accompany them and you know, be there while they talk about their problems." I'm like, oh, "Okay, that's very nice, right?" And 9-year-old, you teach them how to be more aware of their friends and how they're feeling and to support them. I thought that's really very nice, and I'm very hopeful that we will do better in terms of stigma. The other thing that I'd like to see really is, you know, on at the workforce side, today, you know, employment of persons with mental health conditions is not great. I think unemployment rate of people with mental health conditions is something like double that of people without. And a lot of it stems from not just stigma, but also I think fear and you know, a lack of understanding, capability to know how to manage and support those who have mental health conditions or need more support. And I speak also with some experience, because I have employed people with such conditions in my previous workplace and now. And it's not easy, right? It's not easy. You need to support the bosses, you need to support the co-workers, but it is something that we are also looking into as part of the work of the Interagency Task Force. And that's something we hope to make some progress in.
Okay, thank you for sharing, Prof and Ms. Tan. I think like a few points here. One thing is, again, is how do we destigmatize mental illness from employment, from we all take a part, actually be a peer supporter, and to normalize the conversations. I think this is very important. And then another thing, just on Prof, you mentioned is like the digitalizations. I think this is very important in the sense is when a 4-year-old, my niece told me that, Kuma, that means aunt, if you don't know anything, you just Google. So when a 4-year-old told me that, I think like it's important that this generation, they are very different from us, and we need to hear from them more what they need and what kind of support that actually is really fit them. So bring me to my another questions here. I think like as quite a number of students or even staff, they ask a very similar question is they feel stressed and anxious during this period, a lot of stress and anxiety. So Dr. Fung, is there any advice you can give it to our staff, our students? How do we build our resilience?
Well, I mean, you know, the irony that it's all about stress, but the solutions are all about physical health. Having a proper diet, enough sleep, getting out into the sunlight, and having physical activity and exercise are actually all very important, what I call promoters of mental health. Now, Beyond that, obviously, being prepared emotionally, cognitively for what is going to come, those kind of training requires specific skill sets, which I believe that we're not teaching in the schools, and we should be. I mean, mindfulness plus cognitive behavioral principles in school would be excellent ways to start students off in preparing for what I call good stress, actually, or even tolerable stress. And it's part of this promotion of mental health. Just now I alluded to the idea that 100 years, what would we like to see? I'd like to be able to prevent mental illness, but that is a 100-year journey, I think.
Yes, I think very important that is like our resilience framework, actually one link to another. So you have physical health, and this is important, and then with that actually build a good foundations. So I think we have one last questions here. So I invite all of you just to share your opinion on how can we prepare ourselves to help one another to address the mental health issues.
Do you want me to take a shot at it, or Lisa, you want to say anything?
I don't mind going first, just because it's easier to go first before all the points are taken. How do we support one another? So, recently we've been talking about 3 L's, look, listen, and link. And I thought it's useful to just repeat that here, to help one another really, look out for, those around you. Are there any changes in behavior? Are there changes in patterns? And then listen to the person, really listen without judgment, listen to understand. And then finally, if the person needs help, to link them to appropriate resources. Actually, I was quite taken because my PALSEC, Eric Chua, in his recent launch of Beyond the Label Fest, added a 4th L on his own, and he talked about love and how we must also extend love, compassion to those around us, and that's really I think the best we can do for those around us. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you want me to end off, I'd say that love leads to what I call relationships, right? So I think that with the 3 L's will be the 3 R's. And relationships are important. Forming good relationships, having friends, supportive, schoolmates and so forth is important. Then I suppose understand what your role is in school and what do you hope to achieve? Are you a peer helper? Do you get involved in those ways? And then I strongly recommend having a routine. Anyone in a pandemic in particular, not having a routine is highly stressful. So get a regular routine, when you wake up, when you have meals, go and do exercise, get out into the outdoors. Those are important aspects, particularly now as we are limited in developing our other social activities.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Fung and Ms. Tan. Share with us the 3 R and 3 L is very important. So thank you, panelists, for your truthful and sincere replies and the insight. So I think it is indeed a very informative session. So we all take away some tips and knowledge about mental well-being. So more importantly, I think we all agree here is we need to build an ecosystem. So which include community resources, school, staff, faculty, students, everyone. We all play an important part when we are talking about mental health, especially here today, we are talking about student mental health. This is our shared responsibility. So I would like to thank our virtual participants for your very good questions. We took of the questions we will share with the panelists later, also for those who we haven't attended to. So at this point, I hope you don't mind, I will use 1 or 2 minutes to share the activity of the SMU Mental Health Awareness Week 2021, which will start from today until 22nd October. So we understood from the Pulse survey that social isolation is one of the challenges that students has been facing during this period. So the Student Wellness Center and the Office of Dean of Students will organize activities that can support our students. For example, this year, Mental Health Awareness Week themes is Let's Stay Connected, and we will be focusing on social wellness and social connections. So in the next few days, we will run several online workshops, for example, like making space for wellness, the 5 love languages and coping posture, more than ever, conversations matters. So these workshops are conducted by our community partners. We will also have our daily games hosted by SMU Hoppers and SMU Smoother. On our website, we have a virtual escape room. So what you can do is you go there, play games, and then our SMU Lee Ka-shing library also displays books and resources on the topics on social wellness. So one more exciting news here, we will give out prizes. So we have iPad, Bluetooth speaker, Kindles, shopping vouchers, goodie bags for our SMU participants. So for more details, please visit our website, smu.sg/mental wellness. And we have extended the registration deadline to 5 p.m. today. So I would like to hand the time over to our Dean of Students, Prof. Paulin Straughan, to say a few words of appreciation. Prof. Paulin, please.
Thank you, Ada. If you don't mind, Dato, would you like to share a few words with us, Dato? I've always respected your take on mental health and your strong support. So I think our audience will also, benefit from hearing your views, Dato.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's very important. This is especially in our society here. We are evolving, and especially in Asia, things are evolving very fast with all the technology and very young population. And when I first learned on the board meeting in SMU that SMU among the what they call the university in Singapore were well ahead of it, I was very happy about it. But there's a lot to be done, and I also was very happy when I received report from IDA's the center that I run, that there's a lot of people engaging in their services, nearly 2,000 a year of appointment. That is very encouraging. That means people are not shy, not trying to hide, not concerned that this is the stigma is eroding, which is tremendous. So I think it's for us to propagate that and say that now people understand what it is. Mental health is all about. In the olden days, you think this person gila is mad and you just shun them, but there are many degrees of problem, and the awareness is very important. And I think this exercise today is part of that, to help everybody to understand more, and then hopefully people can talk about it among their friends and communities, and then we will grow out of that, and everybody will be better off, I think. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dato. I mean, well said, well said. I know Lisan had pointed out that, there are so much barriers to hiring those with declared mental health problems, right, or illnesses. However, that mental health illness is silent. So we could be sitting next to our best friend who has a condition, but nobody knows about it, right? So that's the thing that we don't think about. We think that, oh, if you have mental illness, then there's something wrong with you. But you don't realize that, you don't really know who has mental illness, because
the other thing, Paulin, is appreciating art is important, because you see there are a lot of tremendous artists, famous artists, people say they're mad, but actually they may not be mad. They have talented, right? Looking at things, So
yes, exactly, Dato. Thank you so much. I just want to thank Jia En and the Students' Union, because we do this for the students, right? So we understand that for programs to work, it can never be top down. We have to be doing this in partnership with our students. And I want to thank all the students who participated in the first Pulse survey. Amazing, right? Over 5,000, right, Ada? Over 5,000 responded, and we are studying the results. We're going to use those to frame our interventions. So this resilience framework promises to give you agency. We want you to strongly believe and be empowered to know that you drive your mental wellness and you are in charge. And SMU then is committed to build a supportive environment so that every step that you take, one of us will be watching over you. sometimes silently, because some stress is good, right, Dr. Daniel? Some stress is good. And then when we see the bad stress coming, we will scoop in immediately to hold on to you. So what we want to do is promote a safe environment and a safe campus for all our students and colleagues. And of course, finally, every day you come to school, we have opportunities to learn through experiential space. So what we do at SMU now is we curate these with a purposeful journey, right? So that each time, I thank you so much, Aanya, and where's my precious Lydia, right? When you talk about your experiences in the co-curricular space, it made us all so proud, and Devi just about teared listening to you, Lydia, because this is precisely what we strive to do more of, that when you're in an activity with us, we put you in the driver's seat, we prepare you, and then we hopefully, give you that space to learn to practice resilience, right? And then when you leave SMU, you will be the leaders and you will be the champions of mental wellness. And then people like, Ms. Tan Lee San will hire you immediately. All right. So employers out there, when you hire an SMU graduate, you will have immediately, a very strong supporter of mental well-being in your workplace. Thank you, everyone. And thank you to my amazing team for putting this framework together. So mental wellness is not just in the domain of counselors and psychiatrists. It is every one of ours responsibility. So this is a whole of SMU effort. I thank especially Mama Wong and Dato. Amazing support from our amazing donors. Thank you so much for loving our students. And thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Daniel, for being part of our family. Once you're a family, you can never exit. Huh? So next year again, okay? Thank you very much, everyone.
Yes, thank you, Professor Straughan. We've almost come to the end of this afternoon's program, but before that, we'd like to get your feedback on this afternoon's event by scanning the QR code on your screen now for a short survey. On behalf of the university, I'd like to thank our esteemed guests, Mrs. Wong and Dato Kho, SMU Provost Professor Timothy Clark, SMU Dean of Students Professor Paulin Straughan, our esteemed panelists, presenters, and last but not least, you, our audience, for joining us today. Do remember to check out the rest of our programs happening in the next 5 days as part of the Mental Health Awareness Week 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had a fruitful afternoon. My name is Jain, and it has been my pleasure to host you. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your Monday. Goodbye.